All right, well, let's go ahead and get started since my computer is now decided I've been idle too long. Okay, so we're going to talk about Proctorio today, which is a new program. Like I said, we have one faculty member using it right now because it's basically been active for about 2 weeks, I think, is when we got it all set up. We are getting it free this year because we are participating in the proctoring network, which just means someone at another community college, if Bakersfield College is closest to them and they're taking an online course, can come to our assessment center and take an exam there. And they'll use Proctorio to have their exam proctored so that there doesn't have to be a person standing there. So for this year, it's free. And if you guys decide that you're going to use it, I would love to get feedback from you on how it works for you, any limitations that you see that it has. I'll be honest, I'm still learning things about it. As Di Hoffman has been using it in nursing, and she said, oh, this happened. So then we sat down and looked at why certain things have happened. So as I learn more, I'm putting it into my presentation so I can show you what I'm learning about the software. Okay, so introductions. If you would tell us, who are you, what do you teach, why are you interested in Proctorio? Dana, you want to start us out?
I'm Dana. I teach anthropology and one course in sociology. And I've been asked to kind of help with the online transition. So I teach a few online classes, but I see uses for it in face-to-face classes too.
For sure, yeah.
So even with parts of things that I'd like to flip my classroom a little bit, that this would offload some of the in-class time.
Awesome, yeah. Cool.
I'm Brent, I teach physics, and I'm interested in it because I am developing an online physics B2A course, so likely going to include some kind of
Quizzes or tests, yeah. Okay.
Charles Kim, I teach political science. I do one class online with poli-sci B1. And we just hired somebody who's trying to branch out our poli-sci stuff online. So, he's relatively new, so I just kind of took the bullet and tried to figure out, is this a good thing? Like, I just try to randomize my questions given in a bank. So, I have a bank of 40 questions or 50 questions, and then I tell Canvas to randomly pick 10, and then that way, me and you are sitting and we're still taking the same class, we're not going to get the same question.
Right.
So, anything that I can do to kind of deter that from, cheating or anything like that, short of forcing everybody to take an online class with a camera,
Right.
turning the camera on while they're taking the test, that would be the only way that you would have to do that, but then you would have to watch every single video.
So just so you know, that is one of the features of Proctorio. You
Yeah.
can say they have to have webcams on, and you can make them do a scan of the room and all of that. Now, Bill and I have talked about this, Bill Mosley, my dean, who we basically said, right now we can't insist that every one of our students have a webcam. You can ask them, you can pull the class and say, okay, does everybody have a webcam? Otherwise, you have to turn off the feature because you can't make it active for some and not active for others. So, but it is a feature of Proctorio. You can do that. You can make them hold up their ID to the screen to make sure it's them taking the test. And then you don't have to watch the videos. Proctorio does that for you and says, there's suspicious activity at this point. There's suspicious activity at this point. So I'm going to show you some of that kind of stuff. So the way we got started with Proctorio is I actually go to all the OEI meetings online and their webinars. And it was one of the things they presented, I think, in the end of September, and I watched it. I was like, okay, this is really cool. People who are hesitant to teach an online class because they're worried that there's going to be cheating or that they can't give a real exam, this could solve some of those issues for them. Now, since then, we've actually worked with it a little bit, and I can tell you what the limitations of Proctorio are and what it does really well. So what is Proctorio? It's an online proctoring service. It allows students to securely take your tests. You add it to Canvas, that's how you do it, and then you just add it to individual quizzes. You don't have to do it for everything, just ones that you feel like you want to have those controls on. And then it allows you to choose which settings are important to you. It has a ton of different kinds of settings, and you can decide which ones you want to select for your class. You can create a profile where you say, every time I take a quiz, this is the profile I want to use, these are the settings that I want to choose. The reason, and why are we using Proctorio this year? Because it's free through OEI. So we're trying it out because we don't have to pay for it this year. I know there's another service out there called ProctorU. A couple people have emailed me about. I haven't used that before, but like I said, the reason we chose this is right now we get it for free. And like I said, we do want user feedback, because if we wind up having to pay for a proctoring service next year, we want to see if this is the one we want to go with. If there's things you don't like about it, if there's things you do, please feel free to contact us with those. So what can Proctorio do? It can do lots of things, but here are the main things that are probably useful to you. It can keep students from printing your tests. It can keep students from opening other tabs while they're taking the quiz. That's a choice that you can make. You can keep students from navigating away from the quiz. If you use the webcam feature, you can monitor the room that a student is in. You can look for unusual movement from the student and monitor noise levels. But like I said, you would, in order to use that webcam feature, you would have to ask your students, do they all have a webcam, and then go from there.
Is that, do you have to monitor it, or is that, like you said earlier, Proctorio?
So what happens if you turn the webcam on is that after the students take the quiz, you'll get a report. You'll get your normal quiz back from Canvas, but then there's a tab over the side that says Proctorio Gradebook. And you click on that, and it's going to list all of your students and any suspicious activity that it sees. And it's going to rank your students from the most suspicious activity to the least. And then it'll tell you, it'll say, as they're taking the test, it took them 5 minutes. At the beginning, there was no suspicious activity, so that'll be green. Then somewhere in the middle, they do something they consider suspicious. That's going to turn red. And it's going to be a scale from green, yellow, red. And anytime there's red, you probably want to click on it and see what it says they did. And if you have webcams turned on, it's going to give you that video where the suspicious activity is so that you can actually see what's happening. Yeah. So when we did this in a class of DIs where there were like 25 students taking the test that didn't have webcams turned on. And then when we looked, there was somebody who had a 42% suspicious activity. When we clicked on it, it was that person navigated away from the test. And they get a big warning. It says, okay, you're about to leave the test. Is it something that you really want to do? I mean, I saw it pop up on people's screens. They get a big warning that says, this is not good, you shouldn't do this. And then they can just say, okay, I'm not going to do that, and go back to the test. Or they can proceed, and then you get a note saying they have suspicious activity. And so that person, the reason why they had high suspicious activity was just that they closed Canvas and didn't finish the test. They didn't click submit or something like that. So I mean, it's good to know, hey, your test didn't get submitted because you navigated away and didn't submit your test. So yeah. So I'm just showing you some screenshots. We're going to go through it actually on Proctorio. But when you decide that you're going to use Proctorio, you get exam settings. This is the one you'll probably skip for right now. This is all of the webcam features. You can record video, you can record their audio, record their screen. You might turn that on just so you can, if anybody does anything they shouldn't. Record web traffic. That's a good one, especially if you select they shouldn't have any other tabs open. There shouldn't be anything on this, but you can at least click on it to be sure. Then you have these things that are called lockdown options. So these are the ones that if I was the instructor, I would click all of these. They have to go into full screen mode. They can only have one screen. Actually, we'll talk about that in a second because that can prove problematic. Disable new tabs, close open tabs, and it doesn't actually close their tabs for them. They get a little error message that says you can't start this quiz until you close the tabs that you have open. Disable printing so they can't print out your test. Disable the clipboard so they can't save anything. Clear the cache. They can't right-click on anything to try to undo or whatever in their test. And this one you have to think about because it prevents re-entry, which means if for any reason they try to navigate away from the test, they can't take that test again. But again, big screen pops up and says, are you sure you want to do this? You're going to be leaving this test. You can't get back in, all of that. So it's up to you, but I will tell you when you go to click on this, you get a warning from Proctorio saying, are you sure that you really want to say they can't re-enter this test at all? Down here, you could do these things, but one of the things that we're going to talk about is that Proctorio can seriously slow down a student's computer, and these options right here are the things that slow down a student's computer. Verify ID, verify audio, verify video. And then you have these. These are what they call the custom behavior settings, where you can decide how important is this to me. And if it's really important, you move this into the red so that any small thing that a student does will get reported back to you. So they have most of the settings set in the green, like we're going to assume that they're not trying to cheat, but if they do it a bunch of times, then you'll know. But if you say, it's really important to me that they don't try to copy and paste anything, I'm going to move that into the red so that any time they do it, it gets marked as suspicious activity. That's what will happen. But like I said, these are the generic settings, and then you can change these based on what is really important to you. Like navigating away, if I was giving one of these quizzes, navigating away would be important to me. I would move that into the red so that I would know anytime they try to navigate away. Because I assume if they're navigating away in the middle of a test, they're probably trying to look something up, is my guess.
And the copy and paste thing, is that like while the test is open?
Yes.
Let's say like, but if they're copying and pasting from Word onto something else into the test, will it say something?
Anytime that they use the copy and paste function, it's going to note it.
Okay.
Especially if you have that marked in red. Now, honestly, if you have it set so that they can't have other tabs open and it's full screen, it's not even an issue because they're not going to be able to do that. But not everybody's going to choose those lockdown options. I would, but because then the copy and paste becomes, it's moot because they can't do it. Yeah. Unless they had saved something on the clipboard before the quiz started. I haven't seen that happen, but I guess that's a possibility, and then tried to paste it.
You know, I mean, like for my class, like I have essay questions that they have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I tell them in advance, like, you know, like the Canvas will randomly pick one out of the past 4 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So what you should be doing is be pre-writing all your essays, and then just when the thing opens up, you can just cut and paste.
So then you wouldn't, yeah. So then you wouldn't choose that, right?
Well, you said that we can turn this on and off depending on which exams.
For sure. And you might say, okay, this isn't a quiz that I need proctorio to proctor at all.
Okay.
And you can do that. Yeah, you set it up individually by each quiz.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so it's limitations. Like I said, we can't require a webcam. If you set the metrics too high, that screen that I just showed you, if I set everything into the red, and I have students who have like Chromebooks, I'm going to freeze their computer because I've made it check for so many different things. This is one of the problems when I'm on those OEI phone calls that I've heard people say. If you're not careful with how you set your metrics, you can seriously slow down somebody's computer, especially if they don't have a very good computer to begin with. So I'm going to show you, Proctorio recommends that you use these. And if you just go with their recommendations, you're not going to have that issue. But I don't. Like, I change things, but I don't change everything because I know what could happen. And here's what I was going to say. Students who are determined to cheat are going to find a way. Like, if we don't have webcam set on and they have their book right next to them and they're not supposed to have it, I mean, they're going to cheat. That's just the way it is. So Proctorio can do certain things. I mean, it can keep them from going and looking on the internet and cutting and pasting an answer, but it can't keep them from calling a friend and saying, hey, what was the answer to this question, or what have you. So just know that, I mean, there's always a way around for somebody who's determined to find it. This is just helping to deter them and honestly letting students know that we're serious about it so that they take it a little more seriously, hopefully. Okay, so how to add Proctorio. You guys all know Canvas, right? So I'm going to show you this, and then I'm going to ask you, we'll have time at the end of this if you want to go set it up on your account, and then if you have any issues, you can let me know. But you're just going to go to Settings, and then it's already added. So for Bakersfield as a whole, it's already there. You just have to go to Navigation. And when you go to your navigation, and guys, I will send you this PowerPoint, so you really don't have to write it down. I promise as soon as we're done, I'll send it to you. So you're going to see this for your navigation, and Proctorio, at least on everything I've looked at, is the very last thing on that list. You just have to drag it up to the top and put it wherever you want it. And it'll still be hidden from students because it's not obviously something they can click on and do anything with. So you just go to navigation and you drag that where it says Secure Exam Proctorio, drag that up into your bar, and then it's set. And that's all you have to do. Okay, so how to create a quiz with Proctorio. I'm just going to walk you through this really quick, and then I'm going to actually do one with you when we'll go into one of my Canvas classes and do it. So this is the quiz settings screen. It's near the bottom where you're going to click. There's going to be, after you've added Proctorio, there's going to be this thing that says Enable Proctorio Secure Exam. So you just have to click that button. And then once you do that, in that quiz, when you go to edit, there's going to be Proctorio settings up there. And all of those things that I showed you, the other pages with the settings, that will show up when you click on that Proctorio settings. So before I go into the rest of this, let's just do that. I'm going to go into one of my classes that doesn't have Proctorio yet.
Oh, you're the one who sent the email.
Yes, I sent it to you, and I sent you an email saying, I'm going to send you this so that you can see what it's like to be a student taking this quiz. Yeah, it's okay if you didn't accept it yet because you can accept it when we go back. Because I want you to, yeah, I wanted you to see what it looks like from the student view because it is a little frustrating as a student to go through it the first time. You have to enable some things, you have to add the extension and things like that, so I want you to see what that process is. Okay, so I'll go into new faculty seminar. We'll add proctorio to new faculty seminar. All right, so I'm going to go into my settings, navigation, and again, you can see it's right down here at the bottom. I'm just going to drag it up, and now it's there. I'm not going to write a quiz in new faculty seminar because my new faculty will be going like, why do we have to take a quiz? So I'll go back over here to do that. All right, so just going to quizzes, and this is the one I'm going to have you guys take in a few minutes because I just want you to see what it's like from a student perspective. But let's create a new quiz. Internet is really slow on this computer. Okay. Okay. Interesting, proctorio settings are already there even though I haven't added it to this yet. Okay, so I scroll down. I want to make sure I say enable proctorio secure exam proctor. And then I'm going to add just a couple questions to make it like a real quiz. There's a wrong answer to that. All right, I'm just going to add one question. Okay. If I'm going to use proctorio, there's a few things that I probably am going to make it a timed quiz. I think it works, but you don't have to, but I probably will. I'm not going to let students see my correct answers because most of the professors I've talked to so far feel like that's an issue because students share answers and things like that. So they give them once everybody's taken the test. Let them see their responses. I said no to that. Show one question at a time. I think that's helpful if you're worried about people possibly sharing answers and things. Okay, so now I'll go into my proctorio settings. And it's going to look like what I showed you before. Proctorio settings, for whatever reason, always takes a minute to pop up, so don't worry that it's not actually there. Okay, so I turn all of these off except record web traffic, just in case they somehow manage to navigate around, even though I'm going to say they can only have one tab open. Force full screen. Only one screen. I'm just going to tell you, I'm hesitant to click this one. I don't know how many of our students have a computer that has more than one screen. But they have to actually disable that screen in order to take the quiz if you say only one screen. And it's a pain in the neck. I mean, I don't know if you've done that because you have to change your settings. You have to actually go and unplug the extra screen and then change your settings again. So it's up to you how you do that. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue that you have a lot of students with two screens. Maybe there are, and I'm not aware of that. But because I sent one to my colleagues where I just clicked all of these and I said, here, take this as a practice test. And they're all like, I have to disable my screen before I can do this. And so they were hesitant to do it as well. So I'm just going to say that could be an issue. Disable new tabs. I think that is really easy unless you need them to actually grab what they've already written out. Close open tabs. I don't love how this works, just so you know, because it doesn't close the tabs for them, which maybe they wouldn't like that it's closing tabs for them. But what it does instead is it puts a red box up at the top of their screen and says, you can't start this quiz because you have tabs open, close those tabs, and then you can start. When I was in Dai's class, college students tend not to read all of the instructions, and so what they did was they just went, I got an error message, I got an error message. And so they just weren't reading it, and if they had just read what it said and closed their tabs, then they could have started. But I mean, it was really obvious to me. I mean, one of them after another was like, it's not working. Like, we'll just read what that says. But just so you know, that's how it works. Disable printing, I think, is a no-brainer. Disable clipboard, clear cache, disable right click. Okay, so I'm going to click prevent re-entry, and it's going to send me to the support center to say, do you really want to do that? So, like I said, it's going to tell you that if you say that they can re-enter,
Proctorio's prevent re-entry feature controls when and if a
video again. I've seen it several times, but I'm still okay with just preventing re-entry because it does. Like they get a big black note on their screen that says, "You're about to leave. Is this really what you want to do?" So, yeah. If you only click things in these lockdown options, Proctorio won't give you a report on how whether your students have suspicious activity. I don't know if that's a big deal to you or not. They're not clear that that's what it's going to do, but if you only click lockdown options, you won't get a report. And proctorio will say, you only checked lockdown options, we're not going to give you a report. And again, this is one of those things I did not know. It does not make it clear anywhere until Di actually did this in her class. And when she went to click on proctorio gradebook, it said, you only chose those options, so we don't have a report for you. And I guess the reason is, these are all things it just stops you from doing, not things that it monitors you. So I think that's the reasoning behind it. And that's honestly why I went up here and hit record web traffic, because now I've clicked something outside of those options and it will give me a report.
And then, okay.
Yeah. And I'll show you what those reports look like as well. If you're not using webcams, you're probably not verifying audio. Verifying video. You might verify audio. And then it'll just do a sound check before they start to make sure. And then it will record them and to see if there's any unusual audio. So up to you. You can select that at the top. Verify ID, again, only if you have a webcam. What it will do is say, hold your ID up to the webcam and take a picture of it. And then it will show you that picture with that student's test. Okay, and then the behavior settings, that's what we were looking at before. You can just click on the recommended, say, I'm good with what proctorio says is the way to go. Or you can go to custom. And those are down here. And that's where you're going to change these things. So if I'm not using a webcam, I'm not going to use things like head movement, eye movement, multi-face, because those all rely on a webcam. If they resize their browser, okay, well, I said it needed to be full screen, so they shouldn't be able to do that, but just in case somehow they are. If they're doing random keystrokes that don't have anything to do with the test, maybe that's important to me. Probably not. I probably wouldn't set that one. But the things that are important to you, you move over to the red to make it more sensitive to if they do any of them. Computer-based abnormalities, I've already marked these, so they're already marked for me. Like, some kids just randomly scroll. Like, some students will do that. You'll see them just moving their mouse around. I don't care about that. Like, I don't think that means they're trying to cheat. But you can decide if these things are important to you and then click them if they are.
Well, with the keystrokes kicked up, because I don't know how most people, the quizzes are multiple choice.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need keystrokes. You
Right.
should be moving your mouse.
Right.
So all of a sudden, if they're tapping on something,
Then it could be a signal
on
they're
the
doing
screen.
something. Right.
They should
Exactly.
have it disabled.
Yep.
And some of those, the browser resizes shouldn't be able to.
They shouldn't be able to. If you said full size, but this is the thing that I've discovered about proctorio. It doesn't necessarily stop them from doing it. It gives them a message that says, okay, if you do this, we're going to kick you out of the test because you're not supposed to. If they go ahead and do it, then they're going to get a warning, and proctorio is going to say, okay, so you're leaving the test. And then you'll get, here's a suspicious activity, and then you'll see their test ended right then. Yeah, but proctorio is not going to keep, it's their computer, so proctorio is not going to stop them from resizing their browser. It's just going to say, well, that's not supposed to happen in this test, so you're about to leave the test. Yeah. End times, this is going to be like if it ends really quick, or if it cuts them off because of the time limit. I think that's when you're going to get an end time warning. And then right here, if you decide, okay, these are the settings I want to use all the time, you can create a profile here and name it, and then you just click on that and it'll use all these settings again. So you save that, and then your students can take the test after you publish it. So a couple of things, and then I'm going to let you guys go take this practice quiz that we have. Your students must use Chrome because proctorio is a Chrome extension. The very first thing that it's going to do once they get in and click take this quiz is it's going to tell them they have to download the Chrome extension. I'm creating right now a handout for professors to give to students, because a student who is doing some of this by themselves is going to freak out, because they're going to go, and for whatever reason, so here's the window for the quiz, and it'll be red. And then right below where you can see, it's going to say, click here to download the extension. So some students are just going to go, it didn't come up and it's red. Because depending on the size of their window, they have to scroll to get to the point where it says, click here to download the Chrome extension. So then it'll take them to another window. They'll do that, and it'll run them through a couple of steps. And then it'll close that window, but some students will get impatient. And then if they close the window themselves, it may not complete. So there are the very first time students do this, there are some issues, I'm just going to tell you. And that's why I went to Di's classroom the first time that she did this with her class, just to see what it was going to look like and how frustrating it was for students. And then if they have open tabs, they'll get that note saying, okay, you have to close tabs before you can go on. If you've clicked for the audio video check, it'll say, you'll click take the quiz again, and then it'll run through those checks before it will lead you to the quiz. So there are some steps that students have to go through before they can actually start the quiz. It took her entire class probably 7 or 8 minutes to get through all of that before, but they had both of us walking around to help them. So I'm just saying that. So I'm creating a handout, so if you decide to do this, be like, okay, have this handout with you so you can look at it as you take your first quiz so you don't, because I know some students will get discouraged and they'll email you or text you and be like, I can't take the quiz. Yeah.
So what happens if I'm on my phone? If a student's on their phone,
They're not going to be able to take it on their phone.
they won't be able to take the quiz at all.
Mm-mm.
I don't know about you, but I'm running into students who are they're
Taking their quizzes
everything
on their
phone.
Yeah.
And the worst thing about Canvas is when you go to the app, it doesn't show you in modules. It only shows you the way they want you to show. And then they have to click on modules, and then they get to see everything. Because I've created my class by module.
Right.
And so if they don't know that, then they're like, I only see what because they're just clicking on there like, oh, quizzes, assignments, but they're not seeing everything else that they're getting.
Yeah.
So I mean, if this isn't gonna, I mean, yeah, I guess it doesn't work. It won't work on their phone.
Because it has to work on, it has to be Chrome. So, and that's tricky with an online class because you could say you can come into the computer comments and take it.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody who lives 100 miles away who's taking an online class, it's hard to say that. You can disable proctorio for particular students. Now, what proctorio wants you to do?
Canvas?
Here, let's go. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so let's go to this one. Okay, moderate this quiz. So, see this? This is, I want them to take it with proctorio. So if I uncheck Matt for that, Matt no longer has to take it with proctorio. However, now Matt has to take it with a password. So if you feel confident, that Matt's not going to cheat, you can just give Matt the password and say, okay, just take it with the password. And now I have a password down here. So Matt needs that now before he can take his quiz. He doesn't need to use proctorio, but he needs that password. But if you're like, okay, Matt, now you need to go to the assessment center and have your quiz proctored. I mean, it's up to you how you do it. Like this says, this should only be shared with a proctoring center. If you're like, okay, this kid has only got a phone, he's got to take his quiz that way, then you just send him the exam password. So that's up to you. So I unclicked him and I said make exam flexible in order to do that.
The make exam flexible.
Is what gave me the password. Yeah.
And it's a global password.
It's for that quiz. Yeah, any student can use it. But it's the password for that quiz. So any other questions on that? Okay. So do you guys want to go back and try taking the quiz? And just so you can see, remember that you have to go in Google Chrome. It won't work on anything else. And that's why you can't do it on your phone. Yeah. And then it's going to require you to download the Chrome extension. And I'll walk back to remind myself everything that it requires you to do before you can get started. So I emailed, Charles, I don't think I emailed it to you, so I'll do it right now. I emailed you an invitation to the class. So you have to accept it. And then just go to quizzes and take this top one. Academic technology quiz, because it's going to be proctored by proctorio. So just go in and so you can see what your students have to do. And then we can set up a quiz like this for you guys, and I'll be here to answer questions. All right, Charles, let me add you real quick. Is it Charles Kim or C. Kim?
Charles.
Okay. All right, go find a computer. And if somebody wants to go on the webcam, I don't think I have webcam. Hang on, I might have webcam turned on and then you can't all take it. I might have to change that. Okay, I have webcam on, so I have to turn it off.